Good morning and welcome to this third plenary session. The Assembly plenary will take off items. Item 8, amendment to instrument for the establishment of the restructured global environmental facility. Item 10, report on the GEF Trust Fund. Item 11, report on the 7th replacement of the GEF Trust Fund. Item 16, report on GEF participants. I would like to remind that the parallel high-level roundtable 7 to 11 are being held in other rooms. Let's turn to item 8. Pursuant to paragraph 34 of the Instrument for the Establishment of the Restructured Global Environment Facility, amendment to the instrument are to be approved by consensus by the Assembly upon the recommendation of the Council, after taking into account the views of the implementing agencies and the trustee, and shall become effective after adoption by the implementing agencies and the trustee in accordance with their respective rules and procedural requirements. GEF Council has proposed amendment to the instrument in its decision 37/2022 and 14/2023. The proposed text of the amended instrument is included in document GEF/A.7/08, amendment to the instrument for the restructured GEF. The Assembly is invited to consider the proposed amended instrument, to approve it by consensus, and to forward it to the implementing agency and the trustee for adoption. I open the floor for any comments or questions. Argentina. I acknowledge Argentina.
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Siendo la primera vez que tomo la palabra en plenario, quisiera manifestar en nombre de la República Argentina nuestro más sincero agradecimiento al Gobierno de Canadá por la excelente acogida en su país y junto con la Secretaría del GEF por la organización de esta reunión. Así también, ante el escenario de alrededor de 400 incendios en la provincia de Columbia Británica y múltiples incendios en este país, transmitimos nuestra solidaridad a las autoridades, los trabajadores, bomberos que están combatiendo los incendios, y también nuestra solidaridad con las personas afectadas por las evacuaciones y la pérdida de sus propiedades. Las altas temperaturas y la sequía pronunciada nos marcan la necesidad de fortalecer mucho más nuestros esfuerzos de mitigación y adaptación al cambio climático y de aplicar políticas responsables para preservar nuestro planeta. En relación con el ítem de agenda objeto de tratamiento, quisiera expresar que las enmiendas aprobadas por el Consejo y que están siendo prontas a ser ratificadas por esta Asamblea para que finalmente sean adoptadas son fundamentales para mejorar la eficiencia, la rendición de cuentas y la transparencia de las operaciones ejecutadas por el Fondo para el Medio Ambiente Mundial. Me permito destacar la enmienda del instrumento del GEF para incluir al acuerdo de la Convención de Naciones Unidas sobre Derecho del Mar sobre la conservación y uso sostenible de la diversidad biológica marina de las áreas más allá de la jurisdicción nacional, BBNJ, entre los acuerdos a los que el GEF sirve como mecanismo financiero. La existencia de nuevos acuerdos requiere de una nueva estructura financiera internacional, con recursos nuevos, adicionales, predecibles y adecuados para satisfacer las necesidades y prioridades identificadas por los países en desarrollo para así cumplir con sus compromisos asumidos. Es fundamental remarcar que la arquitectura multilateral de financiación climática debe ser justa, transparente, equitativa y basada en el principio de responsabilidades comunes pero diferenciadas. Quiero aprovechar también este momento para manifestar que la Argentina, acorde con todas las declaraciones hechas el día de ayer, celebra el histórico momento de haber endosado la decisión del Consejo del GEF para establecer el nuevo Fondo Global del Marco de Biodiversidad, Fondo GEF, en el marco del GEF. Este nuevo fondo ha sido diseñado para acelerar la inversión en la conservación de la biodiversidad, con el objetivo de detener y revertir su pérdida. Me gustaría expresar mi agradecimiento por las rápidas acciones tomadas por la Secretaría del GEF, por los países, por el Consejo y ahora por la Asamblea para responder a la solicitud de la 15ª Conferencia de las Partes de la Convención de Biodiversidad, celebrada el año pasado, de establecer este nuevo fondo bajo el GEF. En el mismo sentido, celebramos los aportes anunciados ayer por Canadá y por el Reino Unido para iniciar la capitalización del fondo y alentamos firmemente a los demás países desarrollados a que sigan ese impulso para poder avanzar en los desafíos que plantea la implementación de las metas y los objetivos del marco, considerando las propiedades y necesidades de los países receptores. Hemos tenido un buen comienzo para que en lo sucesivo los primeros proyectos bajo el nuevo fondo puedan comenzar a cumplir con los objetivos y metas del marco. Finalmente, decir que el lema de esta asamblea del GEF es Healthy Planet, Healthy People, y eso nos recuerda que la salud de nuestro planeta y de las personas está entrelazada. La educación ambiental y el fortalecimiento de capacidades son la clave para un futuro sostenible. Tenemos que pensar que desde un enfoque inclusivo y que aborde la participación de todos los actores, podemos tejer una red sólida para abordar los desafíos ambientales juntos. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Now I recognize the delegation of FAO.
Thank you, Chairman, to give the word. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations welcomes the GEF becoming part of the mechanism for the Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction Agreement. The agreement and the support of the GEF are vital to tackle environmental challenges and promote the conservation and sustainable use of marine biological diversity on the high seas. The agreement builds on the transformational work already achieved in partnership with the GEF. Over the past 7 years, the GEF supported 2 phases of the Common Ocean Programme that have laid the groundwork for change in the ocean governance of shared marine waters. FAO looks forward to working with the GEF partnership to support countries to ratify this important agreement. FAO is uniquely mandated to collect, compile, analyze, and distribute global fishery and aquaculture data. FAO is also ready to assist in the implementation of this new instrument. FAO support will include leveraging the network of regional fisheries bodies, including regional fisheries management organizations. Thank you.
Now I recognize the delegation of Italy.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chief Executive Officer of the Global Environment Facility and fellow GEF representative, I'm honored to address the 7th Assembly of the Global Environment Facility on behalf of the Italian government. I wish to express my sincere thanks and solidarity to the Canadian Authority and to the people of Vancouver for their very warm hospitality. This hospitality is widely reflected in the spirit of this assembly, in particular with the inclusive and meaningful participation of indigenous people, local communities, youth, women and girls, CSO and business leaders engaged in delivering environmental benefits and building resilience to climate change. Bringing together the main stakeholders, this assembly offers a special opportunity to work on sustainable and transformative solutions for the planet and for people. The Assembly gathers at a difficult political and financial moment which is seriously affecting the entire world. While these circumstances add further financial difficulties, the international community confirms its commitment towards the climate change challenges, including biodiversity and nature. Italy confirmed its support to the GEF Trust Fund at its 8th replenishment. That is a strong signal of confidence in the capacity of the facility to generate global environment benefits. The GEF is now in the position to further increase its activity and scope and respond to a growing demand for higher global environmental impacts in an effective and efficient manner. In this regard, the work plan approved by the Council in June is a promising and positive signal. The agreement of the 8th replenishment is based on the understanding that the fund will focus mainly on the protection of biodiversity and on the implementation of integrated programs which present high climate and environmental benefits. We are also pleased to see that in the 8th replenishment, more resources are allocated to the least developed countries and small islands and developing states, especially in Africa. While recognizing that the allocation of the GEF resources is based on global environmental priorities, we believe it should also reflect the economic situation of the beneficiary countries. We welcome the progress accomplished over the last few years. Today, the GEF is perceived as a more accountable institution. We encourage the GEF to further pursue this path in order to increase efficiency, improve the sustainability of project outcomes, and the impact on beneficiary countries, in particular the most fragile. In this regard, we welcome the ratification of the Global Biodiversity Framework Fund and the generous contribution of Canada and the United Kingdom. While not in the position to contribute at this stage, we welcome also that the new fund will provide the opportunity to receive funding from all sources, including national government, private sector, and philanthropic organizations. We encourage GEF to play a catalytic role in implementing high-impact actions with additional and innovative instruments and a strong added value. Long-term, significant impact on the global environment cannot be achieved without private sector involvement to reverse the unsustainable global trends. There is large scope for the GEF to enhance its engagement with the private sector to support a greener economic system. We encourage the further advance in strategy with a more holistic approach to mainstream private sector engagement across all GEF focal areas. Likewise, it is crucial to enhance the active collaboration and cooperation with all climate funds and international financial institutions in order to reach the ambitious goal of the Paris Agreement. The major climate funds represent one of the largest sources of targeted multilateral concessional finance for climate and environment. It is crucial they play a catalytic role in the international climate financial architecture, avoiding the overlapping of similar activities and duplication of programs. A clear understanding of the different mandates of the funds will certainly ensure transparency with the stakeholders and an efficient use of resources. There is an increasingly compelling need for huge financing to address the climate challenges. Trillions of investment financing is needed for developing economies to respond to essential development needs, promote climate change mitigation and adaptation, support the green transition, and protect biodiversity and the environment. In a context of scarce public resources, it is imperative to ensure their most impactful use. In order to achieve our global ambitions for climate, biodiversity, environmental, and social protection, it is critical to enhance the financial leverage of public resources, improve operational efficiency, and scale up private sector mobilization. In a context of a global rethinking of the international financial architecture, as prompted by the Multilateral Development Bank Evolution Agenda to better respond to global challenges, it is critical to deepen cooperation and explore options for structured financial operational partnership between MDBs and climate vertical funds to reduce fragmentation, improve co-financing, facilitate countries' access to the funds, and attain better financial leverage. Italy believes that there is a need for an independent review of climate funds' financial and operational models, while respecting their individual mandate, governance arrangement, and policies. The review is intended to optimize the climate finance architecture, reduce fragmentation and inconsistency in the system, facilitate co-financing with the MDBs while leveraging and amplifying scarce public resources. In this way, we believe that GEF and the major climate funds can become the major players in the support of developing countries to address the biggest climate and environmental challenges and strengthen their international relevance. We encourage the GEF to focus on the important contribution it can give to this agenda. In concluding, while reiterating the firm commitment of the Italian government to support the Global Environment Facility in the new challenges of these decades, I wish to express our sincere appreciation to the CEO, Carlos Manuel Rodriguez, and the women and men in the Secretariat for their passionate work in contributing to our common goal, to ensure an environmentally sustainable world. And just to quote the slogan of this assembly, to ensure a healthy planet with healthy people. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I recognize delegation of USA.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. The United States strongly supports this package of amendments that would add the new Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction Agreement, also known as the High Seas Treaty, or BBNJ Agreement, to the list of conventions that the GEF serves. The BBNJ Agreement will create a mechanism to establish marine protected areas on the high seas, a vital step in our efforts to conserve or protect at least 30% of the global ocean by 2030. The ocean is one global system and is key to the health and biodiversity of our planet. Many species migrate between coastal and high seas habitats, and the high seas are being increasingly threatened by a variety of stressors, including climate impacts, marine pollution, and biodiversity loss. This is not in dispute. The BBNJ agreement is the result of many years of collaboration and commitment across the global community. And as we all know, many of our colleagues, and perhaps many of you, worked through the night for several days to reach the final agreement text in New York this spring. It was a historic moment. There were congratulatory hugs and a few tears, but I suspect most people celebrated by finally going to sleep. We are pleased to see the recent GEF Council decision to target the use of $34 million to support national ratification and early action to implement the BBNJ agreement. We look forward to seeing the guidelines for these activities at the January 2024 meeting, and we encourage countries to make use of these resources. We look forward to continuing to work with the GEF to support the goals of the BBNJ agreement. In closing, the United States also welcomes the other amendments to the GEF instrument to reflect the GEF's current practice and clarify important elements of its operations. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I recognize delegation of India.
Thank you, Vice Chair. First of all, allow us to express our appreciation to Government of Canada hosting us in this beautiful city of Vancouver. We also thank the GEF Secretariat for excellent organization of work. We recognize the point that there is a need for further integrating and mainstreaming the SDGs in national policies, programs, and actions meant to address the challenges of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. In this context, developing countries need the means of implementation, in particular finance. As far as India is concerned, India's actions are focused on creating a policy framework to combat climate change and other environmental problems. Individual actions have the potential of a revolution. At COP27 of UNFCCC, the importance of sustainable lifestyles and sustainable patterns of consumption and production to combat climate change was underscored. We need to focus on nudging individual behavior as a part of mission, lifestyle for environment, by making that shift to the lifestyle for environment. India recognizes the need for strong international cooperation to tackle the interdependent challenges of climate change, biodiversity loss, and environment degradation. We need to mainstream biodiversity across all sectors in order to conserve nature, reverse its loss, and to secure a healthy planet for our current and future generations, and ensure that benefits of biodiversity conservation flow to the poor and resource-dependent communities who are the true custodians of biodiversity. In this context, we welcome the ratification of the Global Biodiversity Framework Fund. We also welcome the announcements made by Canada and United Kingdom towards the contribution to GBF fund. We look forward to new works being undertaken under this fund. Under the GEF 7th replenishment, new impact programs on food systems, land use, restoration, sustainable forest management, and sustainable cities are being developed to address the drivers of environmental degradation in a transformative way and offer the potential for the GEF to support that systematic change. The impact programs seek to advance the integrated approach, which complements GEF-supported projects in specific focal areas. And to achieve this vision, GEF has provisions for 11 integrated programs across 5 focal areas. Further, we believe that we need to focus on areas of integrated programs in future GEF cycle, which include increased focus on renewable energy, focus on agriculture, water and food security, and focus on disaster risk reduction. These are important going forward. Further, under the STAR allocation system, formula on GEF biodiversity index in future may consider the physiographical difference of countries taken into account. As for India, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is mainstreamed into our policies, programs, and schemes, and guided by the principle of leaving no one behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now I recognize delegation of Tanzania.
Thank you very much. The United Republic of Tanzania welcomes the recommendations of the Council on the proposed amendments of the GEF instrument. The amendments are geared towards improving and strengthening governance of the GEF partnership. These include accountability, transparency in programming decisions, review criteria and selection of agencies and projects. It also includes respective roles and functions of the interaction between the GEF Assembly, GEF Council, GEF Secretariat, GEF agencies, and GEF focal points. It is our expectation that the adoption of the amendments will harness the overall performance of the GEF. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now I recognize delegation from Thailand.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere appreciation to the Government of Canada and the GEF Secretariat for organizing this important assembly. We wish to express our solidarity with the government and the people of Canada who are suffering from the ongoing wildfires. This highlights the urgent and importance of our work at the GEF Assembly yesterday and today. Thailand welcomes the amendments to the instrument for the establishment of the restructured GEF, which will enable GEF to serve as a financing mechanism for the BBNJ agreement in order to support the conservation and sustainable use of marine biological diversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction. The role of GEF in tackling our planet's most pressing environmental problems cannot be emphasized enough. Resources are key. As the largest financial mechanism for the implementation of International Environment Convention, GEF has transformative potential to help countries protect environment and achieve sustainable development, particularly developing countries. Thailand welcomes the progress made by GEF and all partners to reverse the degradation of the global environment so far. We would like to encourage GEF to continue its support in multiple focal area programming and integrated approaches that could generate multiple global environmental benefits at the same time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now I recognize delegation of Ethiopia.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Mr. Vice Chairman, GEF Assembly member delegates, warm greetings from Ethiopia to you all. Ethiopia would like to extend a sincere gratitude for a warm welcome and hospitality to the government and people of Canada. As we are taking the floor first time, we want to acknowledge them and the beautiful city of Vancouver. Ethiopia commend also the effective support of GEF for developing countries such as Ethiopia in its efforts towards coping with the ever-increasing environmental degradation challenge. At this point, Ethiopia would like to highlight a few points at this point. The GEF system for transparent allocation of resources to countries has been set primarily based on the findings of independent evaluation office 2017 evaluation using the data available before that period or before 2017. The current situation on the ground may contradict the actual situation. For example, from our perspective, Ethiopia has made significant strides enhancing its capacity and efficiency to effectively utilize donor resources in order to achieve its ambitious development targets. Therefore, we request that GEF reassess Ethiopia's star allocation in light of the country's improved capacity and efficiency in utilizing donor resources for its development goals. Ethiopia would like to suggest that star allocation to consider the level of impact of climate change and vulnerability at most fits with the purpose of the GEF. From Ethiopia's point of view, this is too critical and need to be considered, which will fit with the priorities of developing countries in general and Ethiopia in particular for the next GEF period. I thank you.
Thank you. Now I recognize delegation from Cote d'Ivoire. Delegation from Cote d'Ivoire.
Merci, Président. Tout comme nos prédécesseurs, nous remercions le gouvernement canadien pour l'accueil et exprimons notre compassion pour le peuple canadien qui souffre des séquelles des incendies de forêt. Ceci dit, nous félicitons le PDG du FEM et son équipe pour tous les efforts faits pour la mise en place du nouveau fonds fiduciaire sur la biodiversité. Ce fonds est très important pour nos pays en développement et surtout pour les pays de la circonscription des pays côtiers de l'Afrique de l'Ouest que nous représentons au Conseil du FEM. Nous remercions ici les pays comme le Canada et la Grande-Bretagne qui ont bien voulu apporter des contributions pour l'alimentation de ce nouveau fonds. Nous soutenons ainsi tous les amendements prévus pour la restructuration du FEM. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Now I recognize delegation of Uganda.
Thank you, Chair, for this wonderful opportunity to speak to this instrument, which has been amended in order to improve access of these resources for the benefit and transformation of our economies. I want to speak to two areas, namely, with respect to the governance of the new instrument, under the new instrument, I want to propose that we should use the regional approach in identifying the blocks through which the assistance comes through. For example, we have the approach of East African Community, SADC, COMESA, ECOWAS, rather than using blocks which are very big and very broad, such as the Africa Group, the least developed countries, the vulnerable states in the those areas which are prone to hurricanes and so on and so forth, we need to block it down into these regional blocks, which are proved to be working very well for us to improve upon the efficiency with which we sharpen the focus of identifying resources, identifying areas, and identifying those activities that actually need the resources best in order to have maximum impact. If we don't address this governance issue, we shall remain very bloated and lose the focus in having an impact of truly transforming the communities for the better in terms of addressing the biodiversity issues. The example of these well-arranged groups and constituencies is this example that we are having under the African Development Bank. It is something that I want to place before this August Assembly so that we adopt that mechanism of grouping member states in terms of the efficiency with which we sharpen the focus on resources. I want to agree with my colleagues from Ethiopia and Tanzania that we should also, as much as possible, use the existing data and systems of management of the aid resources in member states, which have now greatly improved in terms of bringing them together in the planning, budgeting, and execution of the programs. Oftentimes, we see a lot of resources and a lot of time being consumed by deployment of experts, who are very good from the specialized agencies, but they take a lot of time. We need now to use the improved systems in our developing countries and put them within our planning and budgeting systems and deliver them through the national systems which exist in order to improve the efficiency, accountability, transparency, and use of these resources. This also will form a basis for the required reporting arrangements in line with this new instrument. We need to sharpen the link between the resources which have been identified, deployed, and applied on those areas, and the accountability of the resources that continue coming on board. So we want to use an example of the African Development Bank as a better mechanism to organize ourselves in terms of governance and accountability of the resources in order to improve upon the absorption, or else we shall have other decades of very little or no impact at all of the use of this hard-resourced financing. The second issue is with respect to the linkage between the mechanism that we are going to deploy in this new instrument with the operational arrangements. Again, it's linked to the required actions that I mentioned with respect to the accountability. The need for us to use the UN-based institutions should be on the basis of our ability to identify those areas only where we lack the expertise. Our experts should be able to work with the experts of the UN in order to quickly hasten the processes of appraisal, because we see at times a lot of time actually is consumed in appraisal, re-evaluation, and as well as the approval processes of these resources. Let's hasten the process of coming through all this on the basis of the competencies now that exist in member states, working together with certainly the UN specialized agencies in this area in order to have that international broader perspective. But the least that we should do is spend a large amount of time during appraisals, reviews, approvals, disbursement, and so on and so forth. That tends to divert resources. Time is value for money. So the more time we spend on this, the more value we lose in terms of the impact that we need for our communities. So I appeal for that consideration in this new instrument, that something must be done differently from the previous instruments, because some of the impacts of the previous instruments have been very minuscule. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Now I recognize delegation of Botswana.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to thank the government of Canada, as Botswana is taking the floor for the first time, for hosting this important event, being the 7th GEF Assembly in the beautiful city of Vancouver. And it is with our full commitment as Botswana to be part of the global community, which seeks to find global solutions to inherent global environmental problems or issues which have in the past decade led to deterioration of environment integrity. And like other participants to the GEF, we are committed to the noble objective of the GEF, which is supporting approaches and platforms that are geared towards addressing environmental issues, which include climate change, land degradation, biodiversity loss, and its threats. And it is essential for any progressive entity to evolve and keep up with changing prevailing circumstances, and the same goes for the GEF. It is increasing or emerging issues that accompany human socio-economic development call for structural revamp on operation instruments for the GEF as it aspires to attain its main objective of health environment for all. The amendments to the instruments for the establishment of the restructured GEF is therefore a welcome development in which ensure its effectiveness as espoused in the newly developed tool. It is noteworthy that the GEF, through its growth path, is today taking further responsibility through the launch of the GBUFF, an uptake of other emerging issues, and the new environmental agreements. Therefore, the GEF, having realized the need to ensure effectiveness of its interventions, there is therefore the necessity to evolve and growth with time. This, amongst others, calls for amendment of the management instruments. Botswana therefore welcomes this amendment of the instrument. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Now I recognize delegation of Germany.
Thank you, Chair. Since this is the first time Germany takes the floor, I would like to express my sincere thanks to the Government of Canada for organizing this wonderful conference and to the indigenous people groups that so warmly welcomed us on their unceded lands and in this beautiful city. Germany welcomes the proposed amendments and wants to thank the Governance Working Group and the GEF Secretariat for developing these amendments, which will improve the governance of the GEF instrument and enable the GEF to serve as part of the financial mechanism of the BBNJ agreement. We are convinced that the GEF, as part of the financial mechanism of the BBNJ, enables the agreements to implement the necessary measures to conserve and sustainably manage marine biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction by providing financial support for capacity building, research, technology transfer, and the development of innovative solutions. Furthermore, we are convinced that the GEF Trust Fund is well situated to ensure complementarity and coherence to avoid duplication, as well as to ensure the efficient and effective use of the provided financial resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I recognize delegation of GEF CSO Network.
Very good morning. Thank you, Chair, for this great opportunity. I would like to also thank the Canadian government for hosting such auspicious event. First of all, we would like to pay attention to the GEF 8 for its visibility. Last 30 years, the GEF have been investing billions of dollars, but comparatively, there is very minimum visibility globally. So to make it happen, we want to make some very concrete recommendations. First of all, each integrated programming, there should have education as a cross-cutting area, so that the people from the childhood, children, youth, everyone, they have the opportunity to learn what is the GEF, what is the contribution of the GEF, and what the GEF want to do. Similarly, at the project implementation area, there should have more visible actions so that the people recognize the value of the GEF. Second, we want to ensure more inclusiveness. This is integrated programming. We appreciate this integration approach, but we want to make sure that each integrated programming, there is a particular roles and responsibilities for the civil society actors, indigenous peoples, youth, and gender, so that we can bring them accountable. If there is no defined roles and responsibilities, there is no accountability. So we want to know that there is this great inclusiveness. At last, we want to recommend that there is only evaluation. There should have monitoring system. Because after the implementation of the project or at the midterm review, if there is a loss, we cannot get back the time, we cannot get back the resources. So there should have latest technology-based monitoring system so that we can see real-time data and we can make what need to be done, we can improve where improvement need to be done. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Now I recognize delegation of Sicily.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bonjour, Monsieur le Président. C'est un réel plaisir pour ma délégation de se joindre aux représentants des pays, aux organisations internationales et aux entités non gouvernementales ici à Vancouver pour le 7e Assemblée du Fonds de l'environnement mondial. Je profite de l'occasion pour remercier le gouvernement du Canada et les peuples autochtones de cette région pour leur accueil chaleureux et féliciter le président et vice-président de cette réunion. De plus, je tiens à souligner la performance sans faille de ceux qui s'occupent de logistique de cette réunion. En même temps, ma délégation et mon pays sympathisent avec le Canada pour les pertes que vous avez subies à cause des récents feux de forêt. Mr. Chair, yesterday we spent much time discussing and reasoning the contributions and implications of the newly launched Global Biodiversity Framework Fund. In this regard, the delegation of Seychelles would like to express appreciation to the important decision by the CBD and the GEF to set up the fund and appreciate the financial pledges from Canada and the UK towards the fund. We are convinced from what we have heard in this room that there is sufficient recognition by countries of the problem of biodiversity loss, environmental degradation and climate deregulation that donors would respond positively to the call for capitalization of the fund. I would like, nonetheless, to highlight the necessity for a just support for countries that are addressing global issues to the full extent of their responsibility and their abilities. Seychelles has achieved the 30 by 30 ambition ahead of time, has piloted innovative financing, Blue Economy program, and is today finalizing a full marine spatial plan. Our country continues to champion the cause of seeds, co-sponsoring the Seeds Coalition for Nature, launched at the last CBD COP, and leading the Africa Island States Climate Commission, through which we hope to bring nature-positive change, adaptation, and mitigation in all 9 seeds in the Africa region. The country's delivery on GEF projects, supported by entities such as UNDP, is billed as very good. We have set up a dedicated structure within government to manage in a transparent and efficient manner externally sourced finance, especially that of GEF. Seychelles government continues to implement measures to source domestic finance and track the impact of and enhance transparency in the use of these resources. As we continue to consolidate, build partnerships, and enhance human development, we would like to emphasize on progressive thinking by partners and people at the GEF in ensuring that access to finance is maintained such that the local and ultimately the global environmental benefits can be fully realized. We have to appreciate that there are costs to transactions, that procedures can become barriers, that there are limits to technical capacity of seeds, and that small island economies, although outwardly sparkling, are delicate and continuously under stress. The GEF has been relevant to our efforts for more than 30 years. It's relevant to the new challenge set by the Kunming-Montreal Biodiversity Framework will be no different. We are seeing some good signs in decisions being considered at this Assembly, and we trust that the GEF shall continue on a path of inclusivity, continuous introspection, and a very deliberate search for solutions with all countries, regardless of status. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Now I recognize delegation of Samoa.
Thank you, Vice Chair. As noted in yesterday, Samoa supports the GEF fund, and we also support the ratification of this new restructured GEF Trust Fund, including the amendments to ensure more streamlined structures and mechanisms for effective delivery of GEF work program. Samoa also commends the inclusion of BBNJ under the new mechanisms, which will ensure dedicated resources are allocated towards the sustainability of our oceans. As large ocean states, this is very good news for us. Samoa wishes to reiterate the importance of the small grants program for access by our local communities, as well as our small government ministries with limited capacity to implement large or even medium-sized projects. Thus, Samoa wishes to see a substantial increase in this allocation going forward. Samoa further supports the STAR allocation as another delivery mechanism that is fit for purpose for small island developing states. Chair, I thank you.
Thank you. I see no further comment or objection. The decision is adopted. Thank you for the consensus decision. I'll move to item 11. The Assembly will now consider item 11, report on the 7th replenishment of the GEF Trust Fund. The Assembly has before it document GEF/A.7/04 that has been recommended by the Council. I give the floor to the GEF CEO Carlos Manuel Rodriguez to present the report to the Assembly.
Thank you so much, Chair. Dear Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to present the report on the 8th replenishment of the GEF Trust Fund. At December 2020 Council meeting, the GEF Council requests the trustee of the GEF to initiate discussions on the 8th replenishment of resources of the GEF Trust Fund, or GEF Aid, to fund activities during the 4-year period from July 1, 2022 to June 30th, 2026. These discussions took place virtually over 1.5 years through 5 formal replenishment meetings, several informal technical briefings, and many consultations and bilaterals with different regions, countries, and stakeholders. Through the replenishment process, GEF Secretariat prepared a programming strategy for the new GEF cycle, as well as policy recommendations that will both enable this programming strategy and increase our impact and effectiveness across our portfolio. These were extensively discussed over all meetings, together with crucial studies by the Independent Evaluation Office and by the Scientific and Technical Advisory Panel, which serve as critical inputs into the process. The GEF Aid replenishment concluded with a historic amount of $5.3 $333 million. It has been the largest replenishment value in the last 30 years of the GEF, representing 30% more funding in relation to GEF 7 and moving us beyond what has become a ceiling of $4 billion every 4 years. This achievement was also all the more noteworthy in the context of the significant constraints caused by the global pandemic and other international events, including the need to conduct the replenishment negotiations entirely online. The GEF partnership adapted with agility to these unprecedented circumstances, delivering a comprehensive package of policy and programming strategies for GEF 8, and leading to the highly successful conclusion of this process. The main items that were considered during the replenishment negotiations are summarized in the report that is now before you. With that, I turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for the report, Carlos Manuel. Are there any comments from the floor? Okay, thank you. Now, delegation of Japan.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I'd like to express my sincere congratulations on the successful conclusion of the GEF 8th replenishment negotiations with amount of funds totaling $5.33 billion, which largely surpassed the amount of previous replenishment. I believe this success is a reflection of the high regard that the international community has for the substantial results that the GEF has achieved through the implementation of effective and innovative projects. In this assembly meeting, the GBA fund was successfully ratified. We also highly evaluated that the ratio of support for biodiversity protection field has increased in the 8th replenishment. The government of Japan has pledged to make financial contributions of $638 million US. As a major donor, Japan will continue to work with the GEF for protecting the global environment. Given that GEF has comparative advantages, such as multi-sectoral expertise to deliver multiple benefits, and with suitable fund allocation, sufficient evaluation, and governance system, we expect the GEF to make even more effective and efficient outcomes and continue to fulfill its mission. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, delegation of USA.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one moment. I think we'd like to thank Carlos Manuel for his report, the CEO for his report on the 8th replenishment of the GEF. As many of you know, the United States pledged $600 million to the GEF 8 replenishment. That was our largest ever commitment to a GEF replenishment. And we are very pleased to be investing in programs that deliver real global environmental benefits. The 49% increase in the biodiversity focal area and the 34% increase in the chemicals and waste focal areas will make major progress in both of these global challenges, and these increases were done while not neglecting the other core focal areas. We are very pleased that the replenishment agreed to increase the floors for SIDS and LDCs, as this is a big step forward in targeting GEF resources to countries that need them the most. In addition, the integrated programs are an important investment that will break down silos across different focal areas, and we are very pleased to see that these programs have been met with such interest in the first round of applications for projects, and that many of them were oversubscribed. In addition, we are very proud of the Secretariat, the agencies, for putting together the largest work program ever in June, and we are pleased to be part of the Council decision to support that. Having a large work program early will get GEF resources to where they're most needed early in the replenishment. We very much look forward to seeing the impact of GEF 8 as we address the biodiversity, pollution, and climate crises and work together for the health of the planet. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I now recognize delegation of Tanzania.
Thank you, Chair. The United Republic of Tanzania wishes to express sincere appreciation on the job well done by the GEF and its structures of upholding stewardship in delivering its role as one of the major financial mechanisms to support global environmental conservation initiatives. Understanding the fact that environmental challenges are interlinked, Tanzania strongly supports the new programming approaches of the GEF 7 that embrace integrated approaches in project formulation, which are more impactful than individual focal area approach. Under GEF 7, Tanzania was allocated a tune of $24 million, which are programmed in different projects covering the areas of food systems, land use and restoration, building resilience through sustainable land management, and climate change adaptation. Biodiversity conservation, sustainable land management, and enhanced water security were other areas of focus. Our projects under GEF 7 are yet to be implemented as they are at different stages of pre-implementation. In the process, we have witnessed that projects take a significant amount of time for preparation, such that sometimes the proposed interventions during project formulation are overtaken by events rendering them out of date during commencement of execution of the project. As we embark on the GEF 8 process and the new GBF fund, we advise that GEF and the entire spectrum of stakeholders in the process explore ways and means that will expedite timely preparation of the projects. This would include deliberate efforts to build capacity in developing fundable projects in order to reduce the time spent by GEF agencies in improving project proposals. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I recognize delegation of Zimbabwe.
Thank you, Chair. Zimbabwe notes with appreciation the report of the GEF 8th replenishment. We would like to take this opportunity to appreciate the GEF and the Secretariat for the commendable efforts thus far. For Zimbabwe, we take note with satisfaction the steady increase of our allocations under the STAR framework, which we believe is in recognition of our efforts to address the global environmental crisis. We pledge to continue working with the GEF to play our part in achieving global environmental targets and more specifically the SDGs. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Now I give floor to delegation of Sweden.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm speaking on behalf of the Nordic countries, Denmark, Finland, Norway, and Sweden, and the Netherlands. I would like to start by thanking the Government of Canada for organizing this assembly and to the indigenous peoples that so warmly welcomed us to their unceded territories. And also a big thanks to the GEF and the Secretariat for organizing. As long-standing partners to the GEF, we welcome the historic outcome of the GEF 8 replenishment. As the largest and most experienced multilateral fund dedicated to responding to the climate, nature, and pollution crisis, the GEF's mandate is more relevant than ever. Our increased GEF 8 contributions are a recognition that the ambitious GEF 8 architecture and the expansion of integrated programming require increased financial flows. We believe that the GEF's role is unique in terms of global environmental finance. We emphasize the importance of private sector engagement, sustainable investments, and financial support. Success will also depend on the inclusion of indigenous peoples and local communities, civil society, women, and youth in this work. An increased focus on integration and innovation in GEF 8 is welcome and needed to provide transformational changes for our societies and future generations. The Nordic countries and the Netherlands are and will continue to be engaged and strong supporters of the GEF. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I give floor to the delegation of Germany.
Thank you, Chair. Germany welcomes the report on the replenishment for the AIDS replenishment and wants to thank everyone involved for their efforts. Germany contributed 700 million euro to the AIDS replenishment, as we believe that the GEF 8 represents a profound basis for ambitious climate environment action through the GEF and will maximize the potential for impactful outcomes. Germany particularly appreciates the central role of private sector engagement in the programming directions. We endorse the plans of various integrated programs to mobilize additional and larger-scale financing, including through the blended finance mechanism. Furthermore, Germany highly appreciates the activities the GEF undertakes to strengthen gender inclusion and the progress achieved to address gender inequalities. We also applaud the efforts of the GEF to enhance the inclusion of disadvantaged groups in decision-making processes and project implementation, for example, by supporting youth participation in GEF meetings. We further recognize the demand for new tools, practices, and innovative solutions to global environmental challenges. We are therefore pleased to see measures such as the innovations window included in the programming directions. By producing new knowledge, GEF operations hold the potential to scale up project impacts. I would also like to echo the comments made by the US on LDCs and SIDS share. Finally, we are very much looking forward to jointly implementing the GEF 8 and thank the GEF for being the faithful servant of the conventions. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I give floor to Togo.
Merci à Carlo Manuel pour ce rapport. La délégation du Togo dit merci aux FEM pour son rôle singulier dans le relèvement du défi environnemental. Nous disons aussi merci aux donateurs pour ce niveau inédit d'engagement atteint qui a permis de revoir à la hausse nos allocations. La délégation du Togo plaide toujours pour un raccourcissement des délais dans l'examen des projets et aussi pour ce qui est de l'innovation. La venue à bord du secteur privé reste un défi pour nos pays et nous demandons un renforcement de capacité continue pour que nous puissions relever cet engagement que nous avons pris à cette Assemblée. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Now I give floor to delegation of Syria.
شكرا سيدي الرئيس. سوريا ترحب بالتجديد الثامن لمرفق البيئة العالمي وتأمل أن يتم خلال هذه الدورة الجديدة إنهاء استبعادها من تمويل أنشطة البيئة في سوريا التي تعاني تدهورا كبيرا في كافة النظم البيئية في أعقاب الحرب التي شهدتها سوريا وشكرا لكم.
Thank you. Now I give floor to delegation of Philippines.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Government of the Philippines expresses gratitude to the participants, GEF Council, Trustee and Secretariat, stakeholders from non-donor recipient countries, NGOs and CSOs, private sector and GEF agencies for their inclusive discussions and commitments in the aid replenishment of the GEF Trust Fund. As a nation highly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change and other environmental threats, the Philippines recognizes the significance of the GEF support for programs and projects that advance sustainable development biodiversity conservation, and climate resilience. The Philippines acknowledges the critical role of the replenishment process on the following concerns: the GEF 8 programming directions with a need for transformative solutions, given the increasing strains on ecosystems. The country supports maximizing the GEF's role as a financial mechanism under various environmental agreements and focuses on integrated programming, innovation, private sector engagement, and country support. The GEF policy recommendations, which aims to balance resource allocation among GEF agencies, refine results measurement, and ensure sustainability and inclusiveness. The Philippine government in this matter supports streamlining GEF operations and continuing policy upgrades. The GEF 8 financing framework, which indicates collective commitments despite challenging circumstances. The Philippines acknowledges efforts to clear arrears and support measures to deter the delays. And the replenishment resolution and documents are commended by the Philippines for review and anticipates the Council's endorsement to the GEF CAO of the replenishment resolution and other documents, like the adoption of the draft World Bank resolution as an authorized trustee to manage the resources for the 8th replenishment. In conclusion, the Philippines supports maximizing the GEF's role as a financial mechanism under various multilateral environmental agreements and focuses on integrated programming, innovation development, private sector engagement, and provision of country support to achieve the country's commitments to these agreements. The Philippine government remains committed to working with the GEF and other partners to achieve our commitments and targets in these agreements. We believe that our collective efforts will pave the way for a greener, more prosperous, and livable future, not only for the Filipinos, but also for the global community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now I give floor to delegation of Colombia.
Muchas gracias. Buenos días. Colombia quiere agradecer a la Secretaría del GEF y especialmente a Carlos Manuel por el esfuerzo de construcción conjunta en el 8º proceso de reposición del fondo, que incluyó múltiples reuniones, principalmente virtuales. Colombia participó en representación de la región de América Latina, posicionando temas claves para nosotros como el ajuste de la fórmula del STAR para favorecer a los países en desarrollo que aportan mayores beneficios globales ambientales, como los países megadiversos. Mayor asignación en el área focal de biodiversidad, con miras a cumplir el marco global de biodiversidad. Articulación de los programas integrados a las áreas focales principales. Mantenimiento de la asignación tipo de las asignaciones tipo de las donaciones. Involucramiento del sector privado para aportar a la integralidad de las intervenciones, así como la participación activa de pueblos indígenas y comunidades locales. Finalmente, celebramos la reposición de más de $5.000 millones. Sin embargo, reconocemos que los retos siguen siendo mayores ante la triple crisis que estamos viendo, por lo que hacemos el llamado a los países desarrollados a continuar apoyando de manera decidida el cumplimiento de los compromisos de las convenciones internacionales. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Now, I give floor to delegation of Cook Island.
Kia orana and warm greetings again from the Cook Islands. We welcome with appreciation the report, which concluded with a successful replenishment of the GEF 8 cycle, with pledges of up to $5.3 billion USD to support projects that bring global environment benefits for people and the planet. We thank all who have worked tirelessly to make this endeavor a success. We acknowledge the work program geared towards ongoing contribution and support to green and blue recovery and direct significant resources to small island developing states. We take this opportunity to acknowledge and express our appreciation to the CEO's commitment in recognizing and supporting the needs and special circumstances of SIDS. The Cook Islands supports the ambitious GEF 8 cycle, and with an improved innovative approach towards better coordination and implementation, and we look forward to the tangible results that will bring the global biodiversity framework and other goals to fruition. The challenges and sense of urgency remain, but we believe that with the ongoing support of GEF, our collective efforts will not be in vain for present and future generations. Meitaki Maata.
Thank you. I thank you all the speakers. Now, Assembly takes note of this report. Assembly now, yeah, you skip this? Okay. Assembly will now take up agenda item number 7. So,
let's start here, which we skipped before.
Okay. Okay, sure. Assembly will now turn to item 10, report on the GEF Trust Fund. The Assembly has before it document GEF/8.7/05, GEF/7 funding retrospective prepared by the trustee of the GEF Trust Fund that reports on the resources made available to the GEF Trust Fund during GEF 7. The Assembly is invited to take note of this document. I see no comments. The document is noted. Now the Assembly will now consider item 16, report on GEF participants. Paragraph 14 of the instrument for the establishment of the restructured Global Environment Facility calls upon the Assembly to keep under review the participants of the facility. The GEF currently has 186 participants. Document GEF/A.7/03/Rep01 presents a list of participants in the GEF together with the date on which the Secretariat received their notification of the participation in accordance with paragraph 7 of the instrument. The Assembly is invited to take note of the report. I offer the floor for any comments. I see no comment. With now the list of participants is noted. Now, next agenda item 7, we'll start discussion on that at 11:30.
Enjoy a good coffee break. Thank you.